Everyone, Tran, welcome to this webinar. Thank you for all of you joining remotely. And as a means of introduction, I will just tell you who is on this call. At the moment, there is myself from sales at Sistran, and my colleague Paul Kayuka is here with me from our pre-sales consulting team. Today we'll be your hosts, and we will be delivering this webinar in the allocated time. We apologize for the late start, and we think this will be a good session. We will keep the questions for the end if you're okay with this approach. Here is the agenda for today's webinar. We will be covering the topic of artificial intelligence and language processing by providing an overview of the AI market, looking into some Vodafone initiatives around that, and also take a short dive into language processing, what the technologies are and are to come. Only a few words about Sistran. It's not the purpose today to go deep into the company overview. Most importantly, there will be a demo session which Paul will be conducting for you, revolving around real-life issues that you might run into. And then we'll take a look into the future and end up with a Q&A session. So let's start with artificial intelligence and language processing. First of all, what is artificial intelligence? Is it man versus machine? Is it a hard line between the two? There's a lot of fantasy around that. Actually, if you look at the picture on the right, there's a lot of imagery around artificial intelligence that tries to show robots that look like humans or humans that look like robots. It's not always easy to figure out where to draw the line. And all of this has to do with the fact that artificial intelligence is, for the most part, revolving around computation power or calculation power. There is a science fiction author called Raymond Kurzweiler. I don't know if you know him, but he made a lot of predictions about innovation, and he had predicted back in 1999 that by 2019, which is the year after next year, a $4,000 computer in 1999 dollars, so that's really a cheap computer, would have the same computation power as a human brain. So that's why a lot of people are making up stories, let's say, around artificial intelligence. So artificial, in the end, still remains something that is computer-based, man-made algorithms. So there is a human aspect to it. And by intelligence, a lot of times we mean human-like reasoning, calculations, manipulating large amounts of data to identify patterns or extract information from massive amounts of data. So let's try to go beyond the science fiction aspect. Actually, artificial intelligence is already in our day-to-day activities. Here are some recent examples. Everybody's heard about the IBM Watson AI that won the Jeopardy game on TV in the US, or the DeepMind artificial intelligence that beat the Go champion. Again, I think yesterday they had another instance of that. So it's already here. So some people might say, yeah, but that's just for the fun. This is for just to create the buzz in the news. Well, not so much. There's also some other situations which sometimes are not as nice. Everybody's heard about the Tesla self-driven car that caused a crash, an accident. Everybody's probably heard about the Microsoft chat bots that they had to take offline because it was becoming wild, and that's for a good reason. One of the reasons being that, again, it's human-fed. Or another example with Amazon, when the Amazon Web Service had a breakdown on the East Coast a couple of months ago in the US, all sorts of services were down. So here's an example where people got a notice that they could park for free because the server was down. So some real-life services were down as well. So AI is here, but for what purpose? It could be for B2C, for B2B. So here we're going to go over a few B2C examples. I put here a world of platforms. Why? Because we'll see that AI is pretty much about having platforms where people collaborate and add some expertise or skills. And I use the word skills for a good reason. Here's an example. You might have heard about the Alexa device from Amazon, which is a voice-enabled device that drives various applications. The approach from Amazon is a bit similar to Apple with the App Store. There's the device, and then there's a development environment where you can develop skills and pretty much offer what they call skills. You have apps for your app phone or your iPhone. You have skills for your Alexa device. The graph in the middle, sorry the numbers don't show easily, but what this is meant to show is that between May 16, the bar at the bottom, and pretty much now, or this is February 17, so in the matter of less than a year, this is the number of skills that were developed around Alexa. And by skills, again, we mean any sort of application like turning your oven on at a certain temperature, to turning off the lights when you're outside of your house, things like that. We're not advertising Amazon, so we will also mention other examples like Cortana from Microsoft and many other ones. I mentioned Harman here. Harman is a very famous vendor of audio devices, just to show that it's not just Microsoft making something, but they are also teaming up with experts in their field, in the present case, Harman. Then you have social messaging. Some people label this as the app killer. The idea being that by chatting with a chatbot, you might be able to obtain information about the weather over the weekend or order some air ticket, basically as if you were engaging with a service person, a service agent. So some people predict that apps might go away, and that with one Facebook app or Facebook assistant, you might be able to order your tickets, hotels, what have you, in one place. And then you have customer support. Here I'm giving a couple examples with a Vodafone flavor. Honey, some of you probably know, it's been advertised in the press. This is the chatbot that Vodafone Qatar has put in place. There was a prize end of last year for this innovation. 24/7 being the company that Vodafone partnered with to produce this online chatbot. It's a US company. Again, here we're emphasizing the fact that you have people who create ideas and people who implement them and develop them. On the right-hand side at the bottom is another example. It's a video. I'm not going to play the video now because it would take too much of your time, but it's a video advertisement from Vodafone Italy about yet another chatbot that runs on your mobile phone to improve engagement between Vodafone and its customers. So here what we're showing is that there's a lot of innovation. You might have innovation coming from various Vodafone opcos. The idea is, in the long run, perhaps there's room to, let's say, standardize on certain of those innovations. At least Vodafone is very creative, we can tell. Now, this was for B2C, but then there's B2B. More platforms. If you ask companies, what is it that they're looking for in artificial intelligence, you'll see from this Tata Consultancy survey of over 800 companies that pretty much every vertical market has to do with AI possibilities, from IT remaining the top vertical, to marketing, to finance, to customer service, and those numbers are changing all the time. Just today when we came in, the first thing we saw was not even a human. We saw Pepper downstairs who greeted us. This is a B2B/B2C AI application. So to support those kinds of, let's say, business applications, you need different kinds of players. So you have, for example, in the e-discovery space, you have a company called Kcura that is a leader in terms of providing this set of tools for legal insight into massive amounts of legal data or documents. If you're looking at help desk, Here's an example, Oracle Service Cloud, but SAP is also another player of the same sort. If you're looking at web filtering, there's companies like NetSweeper that allow operators to detect certain words or certain topics in websites and provide filtering capabilities. And here again, a Vodafone example. I took this from the Vodafone call center page that advertises media recording and analytics. Yes, it is important to have valuable insight, as the punchline says here, to provide compliance and to improve business. Call centers need to have traceability of what was said, and why not use the recordings to derive trends, improvement areas, etc. And that's, again, artificial intelligence in a way, because you're manipulating massive amounts of data. Bottom line is you have, again, all sorts of platforms out there, from IBM to Google to Salesforce to Amazon, SAP. Those big names are here to enable, in a way, artificial intelligence, but they're not necessarily developing everything. As I said before, we're talking about platforms that enable ecosystems. So let's take a look at a few Vodafone initiatives around AI to illustrate what we just discussed. I already mentioned the chatbot from Vodafone Qatar. This is a screenshot from the Twitter, or from the tweet coming from Vodafone's Twitter account when they won this prize, or this award, back in October 16 for the creation of this virtual assistant. So that's one example. Another example is with the people here at Vodafone Procurement Company. There's a lot of emphasis on cognitive procurement. Here I've taken the screenshot from your website that emphasizes what are the different elements of implementing AI in cognitive procurement. There's a lot here which I'm not going into, which I'm not going to explain in detail, but what is important to me from our perspective is that there's data-driven decision making at the end of the chain, but also data acquisition. And what is data? Well, the picture illustrates that it can be all sorts of things. It can be documents, it can be financial data, it can be KPIs from whatever source. And how to make it happen, in Vodafone's own words, there's a number of key enablers, platforms, solutions coming from startups, or let's say niche experts. And I put a little circle here, or oval. We see ourselves in that space where we provide at Systran certain capabilities to enable the processing of large amounts of language-based data. And unified communications is another space where we see a lot of AI initiatives. This screenshot is again taken from the Vodafone OneNet Enterprise page, where you see that there's a combination of various players in here. Vodafone is the, let's say, major enabler thanks to the network and to the service capabilities and to the technology know-how. But then you have applications like Office 365 and in particular Skype for Business, which come from Microsoft. So all this is brought together to provide a unified communication solution to your customers, and in that space there's a lot that relates to handling voice, handling emails, etc., etc. That's again a form of artificial intelligence. So we just saw on the Vodafone examples that there are some, let's say, enablers, and those enablers can be coming from Vodafone as a network operator. It can be various sources that enable AI. I've listed a few here. Clearly, big data is one of them, and the internet is helping a lot with that, because thanks to connectivity, there's a massive amount of data that becomes available from various sources, whether it's legacy data, whether it's live data coming from different sensors. It's a matter of then how to handle such data. Cloud computing is one way to handle such massive amounts of data. Why cloud computing? Because usually you don't have enough computation power on one given PC, but cloud computing enables the handling of large amounts of data. But inside cloud, or behind cloud computing, there's obviously hardware running. So computation power is also an enabler. If you look maybe back 10 years ago, CPUs were not as powerful as today, and today CPUs sometimes are overwhelmed by GPUs in order to run massive amounts of parallel calculations. So GPU is also a key enabler, and you see more and more players like Amazon offering GPU-based hosting services. IoT in the telecom space plays a special role because this is, by definition, millions of sensors that will and are generating lots of data that is usable to derive patterns and make decisions. And another enabler that we've identified coming from our space is NLP, or natural language processing. This is a true video coming from Xerox, where they stick a paper that says, I can do that in the printer or the scanner, and at the other end of the printer or the scanner, you obtain the same sentence, but in French in this present case. You might argue, what's the use of that? I don't want to get into this, but this is real. It works. So all this to say that everybody's working on this, and what you see with the Xerox machine requires some kind of intelligence in the background to process the language. Now, there are a lot of challenges related to language. What makes it complex? Well, here's an extract from a survey conducted by Mein Bowser and the Chatbots Journal about chatbots. There were 300 participants, if I remember well, and these are the top challenges that were identified by participants. The top two, as you can see, are intelligence and conversation. A chatbot, if you've played with a chatbot before, you might realize that sometimes there's a preset of answers questions, and rapidly you run in circles. So you realize it's not that intelligent, and it's not very conversational. People expect that. They want to engage with a chatbot as if they were engaging with a real person. For example, and this is not criticism, every chatbot has those limitations today, but if we take the Honey chatbot, it's made by Vodafone Qatar for certain users, and it speaks only English today. So perhaps there's room for improvement where Honey could also speak, well, first of all, maybe Arabic, but not only, other languages. Why not? There's lots of international visitors in Qatar, and Vodafone is a key player to serve those visitors with mobile services. This example on the right-hand side, I'm sorry if it's a bit small, but to explain what this is from the Amazon developer website. This is the resources that Amazon puts at the disposal of developers who want to create skills to connect with the Alexa platform. And this is the page that deals with multiple languages. And if you look at the bottom, it says right now English and German are supported, which is already great because it's a significant portion of the market. But what about, and this is just a joke, Bavarian? But it's not just a joke. In Germany, Bavaria speaks a different German. In other languages, what about China? China is a large country. What about Spanish? What about Portuguese? Well, even players like Amazon are taking it step by step because there are some challenges. And what those challenges are summarized in this slide here. Natural language processing is complex. It's not just manipulating numbers and adding them up with a very powerful computer. First of all, what is a language? There are, according to the sources, it varies, but some 6,000 languages on the planet. If you take some of the top ones, 1 billion people speak Chinese. Other people speak Spanish. So that's spoken language, and there's also written language. So it really depends on what you're considering as an input. That's the diversity of input aspect. Is it a PDF document about a technical product? Is it a movie? Is it a picture with some text in it? There's a very vast variety of inputs. Then the size. Everybody, I guess, I'm sure 100% of us here are using certain free online tools to translate one sentence at a time when they're writing something to a friend or want to check the meaning of a sentence. That's great, one sentence at a time, but what about large documents? What about millions of pages? that, for example, financial institutions or legal entities like the Criminal Court of Justice in the Netherlands are handling. That's large amounts of data. Then the language structure. It's a different story to read, let's say, a PowerPoint about a technical product, for example, or to analyze the chat coming from a customer on a forum using all sorts of SMS-like language and smileys and things like that and typos. Very different. And then what we call subjectivity has to do with the context. It might be that I'm writing an article in a magazine about a product that I don't like, and I'm writing the story as if I liked it. I'm being ironic, and I'm actually destroying the product, but making it sound as if I liked it. This irony is really hard to to detect. So the context is obviously important. So all those things need to be taken into account. Now, we're not going to overwhelm you with technology about so-called machine translation or language processing. What we want you to know is that it's not a new business or a new area of technological development and innovation. It goes back to pretty much the 50s, 60s, during the Cold War, when people needed to intercept Russian communications and vice versa, most probably. And it started with so-called rule-based machine translation, where basically a computer was fed with dictionaries and grammar books and was pretty much translating sentence for sentence in a nutshell. Over time, some improvement has been implemented with statistical machine translation, which is basically, imagine you're doing translations over time, you end up with sentences that come back on a regular basis, or similar sentences. If you have a memory of that, you can recycle and statistically estimate that this sentence probably means this, because we have 20 different sentences that look the same in our memory, so we can accelerate the translation process. Doing so, you might lose some words, so combining the two previous approaches is called hybrid, and it's like taking the best of both worlds. That was the latest and greatest until pretty much last year, and since last year, you see the advent of neural machine translation, meaning based on neural networks and deep learning. This is enabled by things that we saw before, such as GPU, the ability to run multiple and large amounts of calculations in parallel, just to emulate or simulate how neuron works in our brain. This is where we're at now. This is happening now. We're rolling it out as we speak, and you see big players doing the same, like Amazon, Google. Everybody's in that space today. So, in a nutshell, I will just summarize what we do in this AI, NLP, natural language processing space. We have been in that business for about 40 years now, started, like I said, in the Cold War, but as of today, we are very much focused on multiple verticals. Defense and intelligence remains a key one, but not only. Pretty much every vertical market that has an international footprint uses translation one way or the other in their documents, internal documents, external documents, websites, etc. We address all those. We address this in over 140 language combinations today. And as I said, this is an ever-evolving environment in terms of technology, so we invest a significant portion of our revenue in R&D, this 25% figure. And we don't do it all alone. We also participate in open source projects with Harvard University and other research institutes. We do this from our Seoul office, Paris office, and San Diego office. And we do this with about 200 people today. And we have multiple solutions off the shelf that address those needs. Summarized on the right-hand side. So you see those acronyms I've used before, the rule-based, the statistical, etc. I'm not going to go into those details today, again, but I wanted you to know that we address a wide spectrum of technologies. And what is it that we sell? Well, basically, we bring to market our capabilities in terms of software. So we sell products. This is on the left-hand side of the screen, products that come on servers, that come on mobile devices, that come on desktops. And we don't just throw products at people's face, but we also do a lot of customization when it's needed. We also train our customers. We develop specific features. So that's why we have professional services to support our product rollouts. To give you an example, as of today, we have connectors, for example, with Oracle products. We have connectors with the Relativity product. This is for e-discovery, so this is more for legal departments that need to investigate large amounts of legal documents. We have connectors for Adobe Experience Manager. We have connectors for Office, the Office suite, Skype for Business, et cetera, et cetera. So our approach is really, in the mindset of platforms, is to be part of an ecosystem and in many instances be like a platform which people can capitalize upon. But of course, you can also use our solutions in a standalone approach, which is what we will show you in the demo. As a conclusion of this company overview, here are some of our references from the different verticals that I mentioned before. So you see some very well-known names from the industry, whether it's hardware industry like Continental, whether it's from the services industry like Accenture, or from the IT world, Cisco being one of our long-standing customers who are using our technologies to automate their FAQ pages in multiple languages, or Wipro in India. So quite a lot of names, and obviously we'd be happy to add the Vodafone logo one day, but we are actually in this phase of explaining our solutions to the telco space. Okay? So enough of slides. Oh, well, no, sorry. I have one more slide that I want to show you before Paul takes over. We're going to go into the demo part of this session because we believe that seeing is better than talking. And like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of buzz around AI, but there's a lot of reality we want to show you. So I'm taking this slide here to illustrate an actual situation at Vodafone. I've taken this is 2 screenshots from the Vodafone Shared Services website out of Hungary. The picture really here illustrates very well that the people from Shared Services are engaging with a multitude of people from finance, from HR, supply chain, enterprise, business intelligence. If you go to the website, if you click on details, there's lots of things that are being done for all those stakeholders. But this has to be handled by those people in the middle. And I like the fact that there's different colors here, which to me illustrates the fact that it's a bunch of people that have various expertises or skills, but also very diverse people. As mentioned here, there's 32 nationalities at Shared Services. They're supporting 22 countries in all sorts of languages, and they have customers all around the globe. So it is obvious that in an organization like this, processes are, let's say, affected by language hurdles. They are obviously overcome because Vodafone works and it's a production machine, let's say, but there are some processes that can probably be improved to gain productivity. Hence the demo that we're going to show you. The storyboard here, imagine, now you have to put yourself in the shoes of your colleagues. Paul from Vodafone UK, so that who will be played by Paul here, my colleague, and Ahmed from Vodafone Egypt. For the purpose of this demo, Ahmed will be me. So apologies if you see Bob in the demo. It means Ahmed. Okay. So Paul is having some issues, and with some technical product he'd like to roll out or test. It's a product from, let's say, Huawei, for example, and he's using Yammer, your Yammer, the Vodafone Yammer, to ask for help. Has anybody used this before? And someone refers him to Ahmed, who happens to have used this before, and Ahmed will provide Paul with all sorts of inputs, but some of them might not be in English, we'll see, and might be using various media, websites, documents, etc. Now, imagine if you're in Paul's shoes, you will probably have two options. You will have the option to find someone to translate this for you. You might even go onto some well-known free online translating tools, which, by the way, poses a security threat because you might be uploading confidential data. And you might probably not get proper translations because this is all-purpose free translations on the web. Or you might have your personal assistant who can translate every language. Well, in that case, you're very lucky because I don't know of any PA who speaks every language, and I don't think every employee has one, but maybe we can digitize this. So this is what Paul is going to show you, and once he's done, we'll see a wrap-up set of slides that explain this in more detail, or that summarize this. So now I'm going to pass the presenter role over to Paul, and I will mute myself for the moment. Please allow us 10-20 seconds, and we'll be right with you. You need to be the presenter.
Make presenter. When you right-click on his name,
Yeah.
there is.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. Here we go. Thanks, Bob. So now I will be showing you how Systran solution can integrate in different steps of global collaboration or issue solving or some knowledge sharing. So now I will take you here to Yammer page of Vodafone, where Paul is sharing a post which asks any advice about a new product and Huawei product that he will start to work on. So good for Paul, his colleague Nafisa from Vodafone Egypt answering him and redirects him to another post where the same product was discussed. So typically, the reaction of Paul could ask Nafisa back to translate this post, which is in Arabic, or goes to an online free translation tool and copy-paste the text written here to the tool. But this could lead to two problems, as Bob mentioned. So the first one is sharing the data, the internal data, and uploading it to external servers. And the second one is that we cannot use our own terminology that we use inside the company. So what we offer here is that Paul can copy-paste basically this text and goes to the Vodafone translation portal, which will be installed on your premises and will keep the data internally in internal servers. So as you see here, we have some similarities with the online tools. So you have the language pairs to choose for the translation, but additionally to that, you will see that here you can choose a profile, which will be created by you with your terminology and regarding to your use cases, maybe it could be the domains or different departments. So in this case, Paul will go and choose the Vodafone R&D profile, for example, and copy-paste the text here and get back the Vodafone translation result. So here, he sees that this URL shared is redirecting him to a Huawei support page. So he will go back and click on the URL to get on the support page. So you just have to log in here.
this is an actual Huawei site, right?
Yeah, it's the support page of Huawei where some information is shared for different products. So, of course, the best information is not always available on your own language. So here, as you see, the information is provided in Chinese. So Paul needs to use the same profile, the same configuration, the own terminology, and translate this page by just one click with the button, which will do the translation with Systran server. So now he can check the information here and get needed information in his own language. So afterwards, Paul decides to contact Ahmed, ping him on Skype to get more information. So now I will take you to the Skype chat window where Ahmed and Paul can chat with each other. Hello, Ahmed. On their own language without any limitations. So here, actually, you see the Skype chat window with system plugin. So we have two sides. The left side, where the actual chat conversation typed, the typed conversation. At the right side, as you see here in the Paul screen, he chooses to receive all the message in English and type back in English. So for the case of Ahmed, he make the same thing for Arabic. So Ahmed will be receiving all coming message in Arabic, translated to Arabic, and he will be typing in Arabic to other colleagues. So as you see here, we see the original conversation at the left side. So Ahmed is typing in Arabic, and Paul is typing in English. So at the end of the conversation, Ahmed will be suggesting to send some documents to Paul about the project. So now I will take you to the Outlook page of the Outlook window of Paul, which receives two documents from Ahmed about the project. So the first one is a scanned PDF document about a product datasheet, which is scanned and the text is not editable. And the second one will be a PowerPoint slide presentation in Arabic explaining some different phases of the project. So until now, Ahmed was really kind by sharing some documents, helping Paul, but we cannot go and ask always Ahmed to translate him this Arabic content and find someone to translate, extract the text and translate it, the Chinese one. So what we can imagine here is that Paul have a personal assistant, as Bob mentioned, and he can forward this email to him and get back the reply with the translated documents. So that's what Systran offers. So Paul, basically, he can just go and forward this email to the Systran server, to the email address of the Systran server, and in few minutes can get back all the translated documents in his mail inbox. So even Paul, he's at the lunchtime, at the downtime that he's not working, he can just forward this email by his phone, and once he's back in front of his PC, he can see the email coming from the Systran server with the translated documents. So I'm showing you the coming email from Systran solution. Here you see for the scanned PDF, the system will be processing with optical character recognition. So we'll extract the text from the scanned PDF document and translate it to needed language. And so Paul will have the ability to use this extraction. On the other hand, we have our PowerPoint presentation, which is translated in English by keeping all the same layout. So it could be easy to Paul to reuse this presentation directly without any reviewing or post-editing. So in this functionality, Paul can always use the same resources. So it means he can use the R&D translation profile with his own terminology to translate, to use this different functionality of Systran solution.
Thank you, Paul. That was a very, very comprehensive demo, I believe. So, when we started this demo session, we started with the beginning of the scenario was Paul was stuck trying to find information, and as Paul demonstrated to you, using one single centralized Vodafone-controlled and Vodafone customized server with Vodafone terminology and behind Vodafone's firewalls, Paul was able to exchange and collaborate with Ahmed without taking too much of Ahmed's time. That's an important point, and also without resorting to external translation resources through from Yammer, starting from Yammer, but also through a web browser, through Skype for Business, through email. The idea is that throughout this whole process, translations are consistent, they're the same, there's no, let's say, change of meaning of words, they are the Vodafone translations, right? So you can imagine the significant amount of time saved by both Paul and Ahmed, especially if they don't work on the same days, or if it's Ramadan and Ahmed is on vacation, is away from work. So this is really an enabler of savings and productivity. The important thing is that everything we've shown you today is things that exist today. So that's I believe one of the key messages we wanted to relay to you is that even though AI in general can cover a wide range of buzzwords and real applications, here we have some real stuff, but there's also more coming up. A little glimpse into the future now. The latest enhancement to language processing is what we call neural machine translation. We have our own, let's say, version of this called pure neural machine translation. It's our own, let's say, implementation, and this is done in an open source approach. So there's a lot of smart people implementing this kind of technology, and it's happening as we speak. So several languages are supported, and you can already start deploying this either on servers or even on mobile applications. There are some mobile apps for travelers that can support this, and one of the nice features is that you can even work offline in some cases. That's one aspect. But tomorrow, and tomorrow starts pretty much, if not tomorrow, maybe even today. Tomorrow we have the prospect for improved chatbots. We talked about it earlier, that chatbots, there's room for improvement, room for enhancement. We have room for multilingual authoring of documents, voice to voice or speech to speech. You know, we showed you the Skype chat, it's great, but what if I could speak in Arabic and Paul replied to me in English, and we would all be voice synthesized all the way through? That could also facilitate a lot our discussions or collaboration. It's not here yet, but it's coming. Predictive translation. You know, when you do a search in a search engine, that you start typing words and then the search engine starts suggesting the next words to you? Well, similarly, when you do translations, you can do the translation manually, and all of a sudden the system suggests the next words or sentence to complete the translation. And obviously everything that revolves around language learning. In any case, the applications we're talking about are so-called augmented human communication. Again, maybe there's a little bit of buzz around augmented human, but it's a reality that some applications are on their way. And the picture on the bottom, incidentally, I didn't do it on purpose, but it's the same picture that we had at the beginning of the presentation. It's to show that there's a sense of human-like behavior of machines, but this is all driven by us. So we have to stay in control and keep innovating by controlling the robots and the machines. As a conclusion to today's presentation, there's a few points we wanted to summarize and highlight. the first one at the top, artificial intelligence is here. Let's embrace it. I know Vodafone is among the leaders on this. The Pepper robot downstairs is a good example. I know there's some events that you participate in, that you sponsor. There was an AI event not too long ago in London where you were presenting. So clearly Vodafone is a key player in that space. And thanks to your networks, thanks to your services, you can further enable this. On our side, we see that natural language processing is clearly one of the many key enablers for the adoption of artificial intelligence. And this concerns both B2C and B2B. And as we saw in the demo, it can concern internal situations like collaboration amongst different people in the same company, but also external with customer support, chatbots, etc. Now, the AI ecosystem is under construction. That's the good news is that there's room for everybody. There's platforms and networks playing a backbone role, and again, Vodafone is a key player there, but then experts are needed. And in the case of NLP, we like to consider ourselves as experts in that niche, how to process languages. And ahead of us, we see that there's more convergence to expect. In the old days, you might have seen translation experts on the one hand and face analysis experts on the other hand. All this is converging as well. I want to use the Pepper example again because I know Pepper has, for example, some face recognition capabilities and some mood detection capabilities. So if you're talking to Pepper in a language, not only can Pepper understand what you're saying, but looking at your face, the robot can figure out if you're happy, if you're not happy, and then engage with you on that, on the basis of that knowledge. Now we also expect that some standards will emerge because the market at one point will consolidate, and some big players are really pushing hard on this, like Facebook and other so-called GAFA players. Now, Vodafone and Sistran, where to next? Well, what we'd like to use as a takeaway from this presentation is that we'd like to offer you to test drive our solutions. Could be a proof of concept or any sort of joint initiative if you want to innovate something with your Pepper robot, make it speak, I don't know, French. He probably speaks French already, but some languages that you don't support yet, or things you want to implement, we're happy to explore this with you. This is pretty much the conclusion of this presentation for now. Obviously, there are many, many topics that you might want to discuss or dive into, which may be technical or other topics. We're at your disposal to engage on a one-on-one basis or to deliver yet another presentation on other topics. For today, we had booked some time at the end of the webinar for Q&As. So I'd like to check on the board here. There's a chatter window where people can post questions. So has anyone thought of questions they wanted to ask today? And since we have another few minutes, like 5 minutes, we can take those questions. I'm checking the chatter window and the questions window. I don't see any yet. So what I will say, if you don't have questions you want to raise today, still, as usual with this kind of webinar, you will get a copy of the slides after this presentation, and you will have our contact details, so you're more than welcome to send us your questions. Yeah, I think here in the room we have 3 people from Vodafone who may have questions, and we're going to take now.
They can reach out to Jude as well, and myself.
Okay, very good point, Pedro. So as you know, this webinar, I should have mentioned it from the very beginning, but we wanted to thank the people from VPC here, in particular Jude and Pedro, for having sponsored this webinar and for being the internal points of contact. So feel free to reach out to Jude and Pedro. We will remind their names on the material. Okay. I don't know if you heard, but Pedro and Jude will also post some information on the Vodafone Yammer and send it to us for analysis. Now I see there is one question. What is the difference between the browser translation of Google and yours? That's probably the #1 question we get all the time. So I'm glad we're getting it because we're quite prepared. Um, you're okay if I answer, Paul? Okay. So it's a good question. We can be glad that Google set a sort of standard. Everybody in this room and everybody on this planet probably has used Google Translate for this case, and as it sets a sort of let's say a mind cartography. You are used to having a box on the left and a box on the right. You put your text on the left and you get the translation on the right. That's great. Now, in terms of how we approach it, we see that this is a great tool for, let's say, general purpose needs. For example, if I want to send something to Paul, who is from Turkey, I can send him a little word in Turkish. It's fun. But we see that for business applications, there are some limitations. First limitation is terminology. As it stands, the online translator is an all-purpose translation tool. So obviously, it might not use the same words or translate the same way that you translate in your internal departments. Even internally to Vodafone, the same word might have a different meaning depending on the department. For example, a small cell, some people will say, oh, small cell, that's Wi-Fi. And somebody, no, the small cell is like this thing that has 4G in it. No, well, so there's a discussion. If you put small cell in Google Translate, it will probably translate into a small cell, a little cell. Another example that I like, in French, there's 2 words that have very different meanings in the financial sector. If you put the sentence in French, it will translate into, in English, it is extremely important not to confuse profit and profit. This means nothing because it's the same words. Why? Because it's an all-purpose tool that translates different words the same way. So all this to say that our added value is that we allow you to customize your terminology, to teach the system to speak your language, and to create different profiles according to the end use. Remember in the demo, Paul was showing that he picked a profile, a so-called R&D profile. You can create as many profiles as you want. You can create a finance profile, a procurement profile, there's no limit. And you can also set the browser such that depending on your credentials, you will see only the profile you need. So you don't have even to choose. The system will know what you need. That's one big differentiator. Another differentiator is also security, in the sense that a lot of free tools, or all free tools being free, ask you to give something away. You don't know it, but when you click the accept terms and conditions, you accept to give the intellectual property of whatever you post on those websites. So it's okay if it's just to say hello to Paul, but if it's to discuss, I don't know, a patent or a network rollout strategy, well, you should refrain from posting this on a free website. You should keep this within your premises. That's a value that we bring, that you can put the Systran system onto your own servers behind your firewall. And if I may, there's a third advantage, which is that the engine, the Systran system, not only emulates the web browser, but as Paul demonstrated, it can actually be tapped into for other applications. You can call it directly from your Outlook, directly from your PowerPoint, directly from your Yammer if you want to implement it in your Yammer. So in the end, your own Vodafone translation system serves all the processes in a standardized fashion so that everything becomes consistent across the board. So these are 3 main differentiators, I believe, between our system and free ones. I see there's another question. What kind of files can be sent to the translator? Good question. So the system takes pretty much every, let's say, standard file format. Paul, maybe you want to elaborate on which formats exactly we support today?
Actually, the system is supporting, first of all the Microsoft Office files like Excel, PowerPoint, Word files. And additionally to that, we have support for HTML files, XML files, zip files, so you can zip many documents together and put it in the system to get back the translated document. Also, we are supporting PDF files. So I think we are covering largely all the file formats. So we have like 30 different types that we support, so we can later share with you also these details.
Thank you, Paul. I'm just reading through. Jonathan was asking a question.
In your opinion, how many years away are we from speech-to-speech translation? This could facilitate a fundamental shift from local to centralized operations where language is a current barrier. That's a very good question, Jonathan. There are some products that are being pitched as we speak. You can even pre-order them. I've seen this on the web, like a little earplug that has a microphone in it. I think from a technological point of view, from a, let's say, processing point of view, we're almost there. But from a actual operational rollout and control point of view, it's a different story, because it's one thing to do this in a lab with two devices, you know, each at each other's end of the room with a proper connection to a server, because you need to go through a server one way or the other, and to have this rolled out globally, internationally. I would compare this with, we spoke earlier about carrier Wi-Fi. You know, voice over Wi-Fi works very well, but is there a carrier Wi-Fi available today where you can have a phone call and roam over Wi-Fi as you do with 3G or 2G? Not quite yet. So there's still room for improvement, and some key players will have a role to play. Paul, you wanted to add something?
Regarding the question, I want to add that today what we have for speech translation, in the same solution at the web interface, we have the functionality of speech to text. So it can take in as an input this audio file and transcript it to text and then translate it. That's just to give a brief.
Absolutely, that's a very valid point.
Already deployed.
A typical use case, or two typical use cases, some more for intelligence purposes, where intelligence departments want to capture certain names or place names, etc., for security reasons, but also in call centers. As you know, when you call a support desk, usually you get this message that this call may be recorded for quality reasons, blah, blah, blah. Well, in the background, there's a system that records this. We saw the example of the Vodafone call center solution. For compliance reasons, you can always go back and say, on that day, this guy said that thing to that other guy, blah, blah, blah. And then you can, obviously, as Paul said, you can already transcript or transform all this audio into text and further analyze it. Actually, if I may, if you use the IBWave, sorry, IBWave is the company I used to work for before. I still have this reflex. The Systran, the Systran web interface, on some browsers, you have a built-in voice synthesis features, so you can also listen to the translation with certain browsers. It's already built into the browser. But the live speech-to-speech, that's still, we believe, maybe there's some other players who've demonstrated this, but we believe it's still some time away and probably years away. I think we've reached the end of the allocated time. We started a bit late, but I think we've caught up on time. So I'm just checking if there are any other questions as we speak, but I don't think so. So my suggestion going forward is that, as we said earlier, we are open to receiving all your subsequent or additional questions via email. We will reply by email, and if need be, we can do a dedicated demo. If you have some files you want to share with us, no problem. We can do that whenever it's suitable for you. We want, at this stage, to thank again your colleagues from VPC for having made this webinar possible. It is extremely generous, and for us it was also a nice challenge to put together a presentation that we hope was meaningful to you and compelling. and therefore we remain at your disposal for possible next steps. Thank you, everyone. Muchas gracias. Obrigado.